Every single year in fantasy football, there are some NFL teams that are such train wrecks, such disasters that they drag everyone down. The offense is a disaster. Maybe they're tanking by the end of the season, looking at you, 2025 New York Jets. These situations don't necessarily mean that there's never anything good for fantasy coming from them, but we should probably pump the brakes a little bit on any enthusiasm for some of those players. They aren't always the worst teams in football. Sometimes they are, like those Jets, but sometimes they're just such a combination of lack of talent on the offense, coaching, scheme, all this different stuff that just collapses in on itself. And I got two teams that I got my eye on based on their new coaching situations that I think we should be a little bit worried about. We're going to talk about those two quickly today and the track record of those coaches, and we're going to hop into a big board and maybe avoid those teams. Let's do it. Evening, says Versaria. Special time today. Tomorrow, we're going to get back to the 11 a.m. New regularly scheduled show time. I haven't decided what we're going to draft tomorrow, but we're going to do some drafting tomorrow. We're also going to do some drafting today. If you're live with me now, thank you for joining. If you thumbs up on your way in and all that good stuff. Massive Audio, I see your question. We will get to it in just a moment. I want to hit a couple of these offenses. That's, as I mentioned in the intro, there's a fine line that we have to try to walk, right? What teams are going to be, like I said, such a disaster, because there are inevitably going to be some of them that we get to week 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever, and you're like, I just don't want any part of this offense. The Jets ultimately were kind of one of those this past season, right? And it happens. It's been the Jets several times. But whether it's the Browns or the Jets, or a lot of times it is these very bad teams. It has been, the Saints somewhat or whatever. But we don't want to get overconfident in look, my prediction is this offense is going to stink. I don't like this coach. I don't like this quarterback or whatever. And forego maybe some just genuinely good football players. It's funny, Versaire here is in the chat. I just posted earlier today something about Garrett Wilson in our Discord, which, quick side note, there's a link in the description. The Discord, most of the channels, so if you get in there and you're not a subscriber to Spike Week, there is a Discord only option. It's just $5 a month. Or if you subscribe to get all the tools, you'll see those when we do the draft today. All the rankings, we got baseball rankings. The tools work for every sport. I personally don't think anywhere does multi-sport better than we do here. Obviously, we're focused on football today and football most of the year, but March Madness is coming up. They'll have best ball tournaments for that. Yes, we'll be doing that. I am a college basketball sicko. Go Bills. College football, baseball, basketball, NBA, right? We cover it all. And one subscription gets you absolutely everything. The Discord, the tools, rankings, strategy content for all sports, all sites, drafters, DraftKings, Underdog, everything. And so the link to the Discord is below. You'll get access to all the free channels for free, of course. And then there's a bunch behind the paywall that you can unlock with a subscription. Agree super quickly. Cody says trade deadline mania. I haven't decided. I want to talk about the NBA, but there's nothing to draft yet for the NBA. We need way too early NBA playoff basketball tournaments so I can just rant about this trade deadline because it has been absolutely crazy. But I won't bore everyone today. GM, Garage, what's going on? So I struggle. This is why I kind of like to talk about particularly these couple teams that we're going to talk about today. I always end up having this feeling, pretty much every single year, like you guys do, I'm sure, where there's a couple of teams or situations or whatever where I'm just like, man, I don't know that I want any part of this deal. A lot of times it's a new coach or, a quarterback leaves and the quarterback situation is bad. But we're really not very good at predicting those things. And so we have to kind of figure out when's the right time to one of my favorite phrases, right? Another Moneyball reference, as you guys would be totally shocked to hear, but it's do you believe in this thing or not? And there's two teams in particular, one that's already been called out in the chat here, that I feel pretty passionately about. Now, does that mean I'm like entirely avoiding all these guys? I don't know. Does it mean, we lessen our exposure to the players on these offenses? Because sometimes there can be like genuinely really good, right? Garrett Wilson is a good example of this is a really good football. I still feel really good about Garrett Wilson as a football player. Is he maybe the superstar we thought he was going to be after his rookie year? That I don't know. But is he a really good football player and a really good target earner? Yeah, I do believe so. And so, what do we do with someone like that on what appears to probably not be a very good Jets offense next year? I mean, shit, they're firing coaches still within the last week or whatever. They don't even really know what's going on there. But I'm actually not going to talk about the Jets today, mainly because they've had so much turnover. Frank Reich is a very uninspiring offensive coordinator hire, though he's actually not near the bottom of my list of some of those situations that I'm very concerned about. So we're going to talk about two real quick. And then, as I said, we're going to hop into the big board. I do want to share my screen to talk a little bit about the first one. Is probably not a guy that you would expect. And so Mike LaFleur is the new head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, right? They fired Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon was a disaster for the Cardinals. And on one hand, LaFleur, he has the last name, right? He sort of comes from the Shanahan McVay tree, which is always something that we're very interested in. But out of that whole tree, out of that whole, the Shanahan McVay thing is just always a perk. We're always excited about those guys. LaFleur is one of the first guys where I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. Now, he, of course, was with the Rams this past season. From 2023 to 2025, he was the offensive coordinator, and of course, so those are some pretty good teams. In particular, this past season, they were really, really good on offense. I mean, they've been good on offense. However, that's like Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Chiefs are still good on offense, though not as good this year, right? But we're still good on offense. But that's sort of Andy Reid. He's the offensive coordinator, but Andy Reid is still the guy running the show, right? Sean McVay is the guy running the show. In San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan is the guy running the show. Now, you can learn from that guy and sort of take what they've taught you, put your own little wrinkles to it, and take it to your new location, and that's a great thing. But there is a little bit of, word of caution around some of these guys to not just say, well, look, his last name is LaFleur, which always inspires some great Ben Stiller GIFs if we talk about LaFleur. But he has the name. He's worked for Shanahan. He's worked for McVay, right? But we should also recall that when he was with the 49ers, he followed Robert Saleh, as you see here, to the Jets, and for a couple seasons was the Jets' offensive coordinator. That did not go particularly well. It wasn't horrendous, but it wasn't particularly well. And it's easy to say Jets, right? Well, it's the Jets stink. It's all the Jets Mets. It's Zach Wilson. And I think that's understandable. He was not the worst offensive coordinator that the Jets have had in recent memory, but he doesn't have a lot to fall back on as man, I really, 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 if you make Zach Wilson work, that's the thing he didn't, right? He didn't really make Zach Wilson work. And I don't expect that anyone should be able to make Zach Wilson work. However, all of this is not damning for LaFleur, right? I'm still generally I think there's more positives here than there are negatives when you kind of look through his sort of track record, right? In his history. And you're like, okay, I got the Cardinals. Michael Wilson pops. Trey McBride's a superstar. Marvin Harrison Jr. Cool. We'll figure out the quarterback situation. Maybe they'll add some stuff. We can see some general optimism. And he's going to call the plays. So this next thing that I'm about to say is I also don't want to get carried away with this. But if anybody remembers a certain gentleman named Nathaniel Hackett, they hired Nathaniel Hackett to be the offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals. And so we're taking this McVay Shanahan guy who's never really had success not being with McVay and Shanahan on his own, right? Him and Saleh. Saleh was the defensive mind and he was the offensive coordinator. Never really had much success out on his own. And the guy he hires to be his right-hand man to construct their offense is Nathaniel Hackett. I'm not sure if you guys are super familiar with Nathaniel Hackett. It's not great, Bob. It's not great. He, of course, was the infamous head coach for one season with the Denver Broncos. Best ball players and fantasy players, I would almost guarantee, remember that season because it was the craziest season of Russell Wilson. I believe that was Russell Wilson, right? 2022. I just want to double check so I'm not misspeaking. Yeah. So that was the Russell Wilson season with the Denver Broncos. And all we had been saying heading into that year and for multiple years, before was the Broncos, they just need a quarterback, and okay, maybe let's get a better coach. Even Hackett can't screw this thing up. And at that point in time, Hackett didn't have quite the bad reputation that he has now, but he came from that green, right? He was recommended by Rodgers and all this kind of stuff. He takes Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, all these guys, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, right? He takes all of this talent on this offense. That was also the infamous Albert O steams up to like the 10th round Denver Broncos stuff. They got rid of Noah Fant that summer. So it was a very big deal where everyone and their mother was super bullish on the Denver Broncos. And again, now we look back and we say, okay, maybe Jerry Jeudy wasn't that good. Maybe, Russ was coming to an end with Russ. Obviously, Albert O wasn't that good, whatever. But he still took this collection of talent and turned it into a bad offense. Got fired after one season. Many of the news stories and stuff that came about, right? Like exactly like Flyfish says, he was recommended by Aaron Rodgers then, which seemed like a really positive thing. Seemed like, well, I mean, if one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time swears by this guy, it was great. Now we look back on that, we're like, oh man, maybe that that wasn't so good that Aaron Rodgers recommended this guy. And so he tanked the Denver Broncos. Then he goes to the Jets for the last couple of seasons. I don't know if any of us have watched the Jets for the last couple of years. Not awesome. Not awesome. They even had Devontae and, he goes to the Jets for a couple seasons and he is a train wreck as the offensive coordinator. And when that is your hire, that's your go-to guy, LaFleur, with some small concerns from LaFleur. And then now we add in Hackett to this situation. There was already a little part of me that said, okay, when we look at the Arizona Cardinals in 2025, last season, Kyler Murray, which we're also assuming Kyler Murray is not the quarterback, but is he going to be the quarterback? Are they going to do Jacoby Brissett again? Because Jacoby Brissett was putting up fantasy numbers, but they weren't exactly winning games, right? And even by the end of it, they weren't scoring fantasy points against the Bengals defense because it just kind of all collapsed on itself in Arizona. There's not a lot of avenues for them to make like significant upgrades to the offense. Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride will be back. We'll see, James Conner, Trey Benson, what they do in the backfield. Maybe they upgrade the offensive line, but there's no real way for them to get a quarterback upgrade. So are they going to, are we going to get, what we're essentially going to get is some form of same level of Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett style play, which was okay actually under Jonathan Gannon, who was a moron and a terrible coach who was so unaggressive despite having a terrible team. They would fall behind by 1 million points. But then after they fell behind by 1 million points, well, he was willing to throw it 50 times, which is great for us for fantasy, not so great for real life football. We're introducing a whole lot of different elements here where we've kind of all soured on Kyler. Jacoby Brissett was fine enough for getting the ball to Michael Wilson and to Trey McBride when they're throwing 1 million times. But that was also under an old scheme, a different coach. Now we have a new coach. Now we have Nathaniel Hackett in the mix, and we have the, McVay and Shanahan tree, but a guy who has not really been super successful, not working for Shanahan or McVay. This is a lot of question marks. This is a lot of question marks amongst it, right? The quarterback position, they're probably not going to be throwing 50 times a week for Michael Wilson, right? I actually am higher on Michael Wilson than I thought I would be. It certainly as a talent, I think there's many reasons to be concerned about him, but you can't just write off doing what he did for an extended stretch of the season. Is he, maybe a little bit worse than what we saw, but better than the old Michael Wilson? I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Is Marvin Harrison actually any good? It's tough to say. He was an incredible big time prospect worthy of being drafted, at least give or take where he was drafted. But does his game not translate to the NFL? I have no idea. Trey McBride's a superstar for sure. But again, are they going to throw the ball? Like, we're talking about this dude's like a first round pick, right? We're talking about the 1-2 turn, for Trey McBride. And I love Trey McBride as much as anybody. It's just a lot of red flags. I think about it a little bit. A couple of years ago, I believe I called the Saints this. This was the final Derek Carr season, which turned into Spencer Rattler and stuff like that, before Tyler Shuck, where it just felt like a house of cards. And that's no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, with the Cardinals. It's a house of cards where there's so many flimsy things holding this up. Like, okay, Michael Wilson broke out. How real was that? Okay, Marvin Harrison, we're still thinking he's good. Is he? Right? Is it Kyler? Is it Jacoby Brissett? Right. Is it Kirk Cousins, says Versaire? Like, is Kirk Cousins the best case scenario? I know he was okay for Atlanta kind of late in the season, but this guy, that'll be another year older. He can't move. His arm is not there anymore. That's not really the best case scenario I want. Right. And so there's just a lot of elements to, oh boy, this could be really bad, from Nathaniel Hackett's influence to LaFleur may not be as good as one might hope. This job was one of the least desirable jobs. I think that's why they have LaFleur and Hackett kind of running the show, as opposed to a Harbaugh, right? Or a Kubiak or something like that. It's telling that Clint Kubiak chose the Vegas job, who was worse, honestly, arguably worse. The Raiders were worse, but they're gonna, right? They have some foundational pieces plus Mendoza that brought him in. I mean, I'm sure Vegas doesn't hurt and the money doesn't hurt, but this house of cards, pun intended, situation is very disturbing for the Arizona Cardinals. And so I actually have been a little bit ahead. I've not updated the rankings as of yet. I wanted to kind of think it through, frankly, on the show here today with you guys. It's a lot of red flags for everyone on this offense, for the coaches, for this offensive coordinator that I cannot believe got another job as an offensive coordinator in the NFL with absolutely no track record of competence at all. The Cardinals are team number one. However, team number two, that I've talked about this one a little bit, so there will be a little bit shorter with this one, and then we'll hop into the big board. I hate to keep bringing this poor guy's name up, but Mr. Jeff Hafley, head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Maybe this was the least desirable job if this dude got this job. So, defensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers. He comes over after 2 seasons. If you see here quickly, after 2 seasons as the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. They were a little bit better on defense 2 years ago. This past season, everyone remembers, I would assume, we all remember the week 1 absolute freaking beatdown of the Detroit Lions. Beatdown, right? After week 1, we were all, holy cow, the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. This defense, the Lions can't move the ball. The Lions can't move the ball, right? The Lions. I know it's road golf, outdoors golf, but it's fucking September. Like, this is not what we had all expected. And the Packers offense was good, but it was really on the backs of the defense. And so obviously they, you get Michael Parsons. They had some talent on this defense. They were a solid defense in the year prior, though not world beaters. He's supposed to be a defensive mastermind. And what is the biggest red flag of them all is if your specialty, when you are hired as a coach and your specialty is either offense or defense, but you don't actually produce elite results as that specialty, how can you take the step up to the head coaching level? And now in a new situation with worse talent, expect to not only become better on that side of the ball, on the defensive side, but elevate the side that you don't coach, right? That's a very difficult hurdle to clear for him. Last year in particular was really terrifying. But I want to quickly go to the job that he had before the Green Bay Packers defense. How he got the defensive coordinator job with Green Bay is a little bit shocking when you go look that he was the head coach at Boston College, right? So for anybody that's, I don't know, it's college football in the ACC, and now Boston College, it's not an easy place to win. There's no denying that. But if you're such a good coach, we're not talking, he's not coaching in the Ivy League here, right? He's not coaching Western Michigan. We're coaching an ACC program. And frankly, the ACC has not been the ACC outside of, right? You might get a team every year. We got Miami this year. We've had Clemson a couple times, SMU, whatever. But this isn't the SEC. This isn't the Big Ten. And even with a little bit lack of resources, if you can't really, you're just going 500 to below 500 every single year as a college football coach, then he gets the defensive coordinator job. So what exactly was so inspiring about his time at Boston College? I really don't know. Both of these hires reek of the good old boys club. These guys know somebody, they're friends, they get the job because they like each other, as opposed to what's on their resume. Because there's nothing particularly inspiring on Jeff Hafley's resume. So we had the Boston College thing. We have a mediocre, let's call it average to above average season in his first year with the Packers. And then last year, when they're going for it, right? We're going to trade for Micah Parsons. We have this really strong defense, but we can get that one extra piece, one of the best defensive players in all football. And I know he got hurt by the end of the year, but he was healthy for most of the season. And if you look here on the far right-hand side where it says defensive EPA, I like to generally use expected points added to determine kind of overall quality of play. Because if you're on the defensive side, if you have a negative EPA, right? So if I search by that, the Texans have the best defense in football on an EPA per play perspective. On every play, their opponents were expecting to lose almost 0.2 points on every single play, right? Whereas the Seahawks were second. There was only 4 teams at 10th of a point or higher, I guess I would say, in this. And the Vikings were actually up there. Shout out Brian Flores. Shout out to the Cleveland Browns. But there's an example. The Cleveland Browns, with the worst offense ever, they have their own flaws on the defensive side as well. We can say whatever we want about Jim Schwartz, but he had Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett helped make the Cleveland Browns a very good defense, top 5 or so, at least in a variety of analytical metrics. So you would say, well, the Packers had to be like at least decent, right? Oh boy. So if we sort by, this is now worst at the top here, Dallas Cowboys. Here's the worst defenses from an EPA per play perspective in football last year. Dallas Cowboys, New York Jets, Washington Commanders, Cincinnati Bengals, Arizona Cardinals, New York Giants, Miami Dolphins, Tennessee Titans, and the Green Bay Packers. They are down there with the Titans and the Dolphins. A little bit worse than, remember how many times we were like, oh boy, Bears games are going to shoot out because their defense isn't very good. EPA per play better for the Chicago Bears than the Green Bay Packers. This is with all that talent. This is with Micah Parsons. He's supposed to be the defensive guru. And he's going to Miami now, who Tyreek gone, Mike McDaniel gone. Where is the offensive upside coming from? Tua seemingly gone with no path to, right? We just talked about Kirk Cousins is the best case scenario as a bridge for the Arizona Cardinals. What's the best case scenario for the Dolphins? They've constructed this team around Mike McDaniel's, brain, which we can say whatever we want about Mike McDaniel, and he's probably not fit to be an NFL head coach. I shouldn't even say that. Maybe it just didn't work in Miami, and it remains to be seen if he's an NFL head coach. What is Jeff Hafley going to do to turn this offense around. Without Tyreek Hill, I assume Darren Waller is gone, right? Jalen Waddle has not elevated to a level of an alpha star wide receiver. He's a good football player when he's not limping off the field after getting tackled. And specifically, Devon Achane is worrisome. He's a superstar. I'm not proclaiming a fade of Devon Achane, but think about what we just went from. Again, whatever we want to say about Mike McDaniel, the way he used Devon Achane and the way he specifically unlocked him, for our sake, maybe not winning a lot of football games, catching a million passes, utilizing him as a pass catcher. Does Jeff Hafley strike you as the guy that's going to be super creative and be like, we're going to do a bunch of fun stuff with Devon Achane? He doesn't to me. And they don't have a quarterback. Tua probably fit really well with Devon Achane in terms of unlocking him, right? Mike McDaniel definitely did some tons of outside zone, using Achane's explosiveness to his advantage, right? Just let's not use him like he's Derrick Henry. Let's use him like he's Devon Achane. Really, really, really building the offense around Achane, especially as Tyreek aged and was injured and wasn't quite as effective. And frankly, Tua's sort of lack of mobility and arm strength was kind of exposed over time with McDaniel. We kind of thought it was McDaniel's fault, and some of it certainly was. He's the head coach. He's the one calling the plays. He did get a little bit, kind of maybe crazy with his gadgety stuff, but he was able to unlock Devon Achane. Does this new situation, does this guy who can't create a good defense, I'm not saying he had to have the best defense in football. The Texans and Seahawks probably got that locked down. But a bottom 8 defense with that team, that's the dude that's going to elevate Devon Achane. Devon Achane's a first-round pick in fantasy drafts. It's just worrying that we don't know who the quarterback is going to be in either of these situations. The coaches are not at all inspiring, and they don't really have paths, right? Okay, you could say, well, they'll use free agency and they'll use the draft. Will they? They also have terrible we see the Cardinals and the Dolphins defense on this list as well as 2 terrible, terrible defenses that need to improve on that side. There's no real paths. The only, as Versaire says, Malik Willis is like the only Mac Jones. People mention Mac Jones a lot. You would have to trade for Mac Jones. You're going to have to give up picks to get Mac Jones, which seems unlikely for these teams. The 49ers are not going to give him up for a light package. This is more of a Jaren Jackson Jr. trade than it is a Nikola Vucevic trade. There's my NBA trade deadline sneaking it in there. These both feel, to me right now, as I've been working through my teams and working through my coaches and working through, the setup and everything for 2026 for all of these teams, the first 2 that stand out to me as, oh boy, aren't you worried? Yeah, I'm very, very worried about the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals for very different reasons, but reasons nonetheless that I think are very, very worrisome. Let's see. Flyfish says 2026 Miami has pretty strong 2025 New York Jets feel. I am with you. I like that comparison. John thinks Miami is going to be just fine with a smiley face. We got a Dolphins fan here. John Cullen says, I'm out on the Cardinals offense after their OC hire. I am with you. They did say LaFleur is going to call the plays. So if you recall, Nathaniel Hackett had some rough times calling the plays for the Denver Broncos. I would have to go back and look up some of the stories because I don't remember the specifics every single one of them. But man, there were times where he couldn't get the play calls in. He was saying the wrong plays. He didn't, hit timeout usage and all that stuff with Hackett it was pretty much in total incompetence from him when he was in Denver. Now it's been a few years since that has happened, but he has not done anything in those years to inspire any confidence. So it's good that LaFleur is calling plays, but LaFleur has been working for Sean McVay for the last few years. You know who calls the plays? Sean McVay, not LaFleur. So this is going to be a new change for him. So he's getting the head coaching job, and now he's going to have to call the plays, and he's going to have to, hold his offensive coordinator's hand up and down the sideline to make sure that he doesn't screw things up, because that's all he's done just about everywhere that he's been. The Arizona Cardinals and the Miami Dolphins, my 2 Aren't you worried? Way too early, February 4th. Aren't you worried? Let's hop into the big board. Olaf, good. I almost said good morning. Good afternoon. I'm used to going in the mornings. Yeah, the Adam Gase, Peyton Manning paradigm. That is the Nathaniel Hackett situation. It did strike me when the Cardinals hired Hackett that does that make them in the market for Aaron Rodgers? Which is just like, I mean, I guess it would be fine for the pass catchers. I guess it would be fine for McBride and Wilson and Marv and stuff. But boy, can you imagine? So the thing about Michael Wilson, he wasn't like, this wasn't just getting wide open all the time. And that's okay. He was doing some sick stuff, honestly. Rewatching some of the mainly more so highlights and stuff, but rewatching some of the stuff from Michael Wilson, he was impressive. But it's a lot of contested catch, right? It's a lot of work downfield. Jacoby Brissett giving him a chance. And he was great at that. Aaron Rodgers doesn't love to do that. It's not really his bag. He's not the, I'm going to throw it up. He's the, we're going to check it down all the way up and down the field. So maybe that's good for Trey McBride. Doesn't strike me as so good for Marvin Harrison Jr. There's no reporting on that. I'm not predicting this or whatever, but the parallels of Hackett and Rodgers were pretty funny for a team in Arizona that I don't know if they need they need a quarterback long term. I don't know if they need one of these quarterbacks over Kyler Murray, but we shall see. This is such a great comment. M11 says, I'm born and raised in Miami, and I've never not been worried about it. That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, now the Heat, that's a different story. Yeah, talk about two completely polar opposite situations as a fan. The Heat, you're just like, even when you're not excited about the team, like frankly, coming into this year, Heat fans, I assume, were not excited about the team. You're like, I don't know, they're just always good, so whatever. And they're like kind of, they're not good, but they're competent this year for sure because they have one of the best ecosystems in sports. The Miami Heat do. The Miami Dolphins have the exact fucking opposite of that. So that's got to be interesting for Miami fans. Are my Bills going to trade for Marv? No, I don't think so. But they should sure try. If Marv's value has gone down, I would be trying to buy low for sure. I don't know that he's good. I don't know that trade would work out. I'm not pounding the table to tell anybody that I think, oh, it's fine. 2 bad years for Marv. It's fine. But I am saying that I don't know, and I would be interested in buying low if it were possible, especially for a wide receiver. I mean, Marv is better than the dog shit than Keon and Tyrell Shavers and stuff like that. That's for sure. That's so funny. There is H.N. I'm going to do Genty. The opposite side of this coin of players with situations that I'm now very excited for. Let's do Neighbors. Neighbors is fine. I don't have him yet. Aren't you worried about Malik Neighbors? Yes, I am. But sorry, Versaire, we didn't do anything super unique. I'm trying to get gotta get my Genty bags right. Vikes management is sneaky dysfunctional. Yep. Won't get into the whole firing of the general manager too much here, but bizarre choice. Certainly a bizarre choice. Also sort of calling out the dysfunction of the way NFL bros, the people in the NFL, coaches and front office people and all that kind of stuff, think about their jobs and stuff. God forbid someone, is taking care of their family. Weird stuff going on there. Now, what is weird? He said he wasn't going to talk about it, and then he talks about it. But what I do think is weird is you You could have just said, you know, some moves were made. JJ McCarthy, various draft picks that they've made in recent memory, various moves that they made. Letting Sam Darnold go, right? You could have cited one of many different. I actually think he's like a net positive overall, right? Has been a net positive general manager, but you could absolutely cite a bunch of stuff that is like, look, mistakes were made, and we need to find somebody who's not going to make those mistakes. Easy peasy, man. That's not difficult. Why is that so fucking difficult to say? Why do you got to drag the man for caring about his family? That's so fucking stupid. Let's see. As bad as Arizona with Lil LaFleur, that's like a new. That's what. I'm so completely out of touch with the modern. So I'm a hip hop fan. That's my jam. It's my music, but I don't listen to like any of the new stuff. I'm very boomery in that way. I was born in '88. I'm a '90s and early 2000s hip hop fan. So from the Biggie and Pac through Eminem and Lil Wayne, and that whole run, that's my vibe. And I just don't love the new hip hop. But do the artists all still do like Lil whatever? Is that still a thing? Have we carried that on? I'm unfamiliar. But yeah, the Jets almost made this list, but it felt like too easy. But Flyfish says the Jets running out Reich and Ty Simpson might be worse. If they draft Ty Simpson, we'll do a video just making fun of the Jets. If you draft Ty Simpson at number 2 overall, you want to talk about GMs who should be fucking fired. You should be insta-fired. They should escort you out of the fucking draft room if you draft Ty Simpson 2 overall. Speaking of the Jets here, I'm going to do T-Mac, and then I'm going to do J-Mo. I don't have J-Mo yet in the big board. I already do have T-Mac, which is totally fine with me, but I like the start Ashton Genty, Malik Neighbors, T-Mac, and Jameson Williams. Why do I feel like Kyler is the Jets move at quarterback? It feels like such a Jets move. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you. The Lewis Klein over Kyle Hamilton pick was enough for a fight. That's what I'm saying. You could have cited one of many different things. Many different things. I don't understand why it was done the way that it was done. It's just a bad. Speaking of like the dysfunction in the organization, that seems awfully dysfunctional. Just say the man was like, I mean, maybe there's something behind the scenes that we just didn't know. I don't know. Who knows? B Fagan. The one made it look like a Fagani. B Fagan. Warriors jerseys. I like it. Who do you have as the most uncomfortable first or second round pick as of right now? So it's definitely Achane. But since I kind of talked about that a little bit, and then he's, a little bit falling into the second round. I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey. And I know you're going to fade Christian McCaffrey again. And whatever. This is the first year I've actually like felt sort of good about the Christian McCaffrey. Every other years the Christian McCaffrey fade is like, well, he can't keep getting away with this type of a fade, right? And I mean, it did work a couple years ago when he basically didn't play. But he was legitimately ineffective as a runner this past year. He's going to be a year older. I don't see another one of these like insane volume situations from Christian McCaffrey. And he racked up plenty of touches, but his snap shares and stuff throughout the course of the season were often lessened with Brian Robinson mixing in and what have you. They really like Jordan James. We'll see if that means anything. They'll probably still draft another guy, and then Jordan James will be forgotten. But for now, Garendo is forgotten. Who knows? But they're in a weird spot, the 49ers. They'll always be competitive with Shanahan and Purdy and that, but no Kittle. Ayuk going to be gone. Juwan Jennings is a free agent. Ricky Pearsall has not been able to stay healthy in his career. How much longer is Trent Williams going to be the guy? it's a bit of a year of transition for the 49ers, despite winning a playoff game again this year. And, the rubber is going to meet the road on Christian McCaffrey at a certain point, and I think it's already started to trend that way. So he's the most uncomfortable guy for me. And I know people say, well, how could it's Christian McCaffrey and he gets the ball 25 times every single game? Why is that uncomfortable? It's like, well, that's actually part of the problem, is that he's getting older and he's not holding up from an efficiency perspective to that. Still an awesome receiver, but eventually you start to lose some of the rushing stuff, and you just become a little bit more of a part of a committee, and you're not paying for a committee with Christian McCaffrey, right? That's why he's a first round pick, because you're expecting all the stuff. Oof. Let's do Lemon. Let's do Mekhi Lemon. This Javonte price is way too much, given he's a free agent. So is Cortland Sutton, if we're being totally honest. We'll just, oh no, I missed it. It's going to give me Justin Herbert. That's fine. I talked about this, I think, on maybe last Wednesday. Yeah, last Wednesday. Talked about the quarterback thirst that's in all of these rooms, but also just the general value I think that exists on for everyone. I think Josh Allen is about appropriately priced, but I think he's still a good pick. But then from Lamar down to, shoot, man. Purdy, Mahomes is a little iffy, but close enough. I have him close enough to ADP. Bo Nix, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Malik Willis, Mendoza, Baker. I'm a little bit lighter on Shuck than the market is, but even to Bryce Young, right? I just think the quarterbacks are some of the most undervalued assets. But there can be a bit of a feeding frenzy once you get into these middle rounds for those quarterbacks. And there's a very serious lack of depth, at least at this moment. And I think there's going to be the case over the summer too, but certainly at this moment, where what are you even getting out of the late round guys? There's not rookies. Back, like I said, Tyson. I mean, unless you're the one Ty Simpson stan, maybe Trinidad Chambliss gets a job. I doubt that. There's just not much back there. And not only is it this isn't, oh, well, there's some free agents that are going to get jobs and then they'll be good for fantasy. We just don't know where they're going to be. There's just not really anybody that's even particularly good for fantasy back there. There's Malik Willis, but he's and I love Malik Willis, but he's priced to, we're all just assuming he's getting a job, and he's priced to reflect that. You're not getting 18th round Malik Willis. So I'm trying to avoid, one of my goals across, so however many big board teams I draft, is I'm trying not to, I don't ever want to feel that uncomfortable, damn, man, I guess I need Kyler on this team. I guess I need Tua on this team, right? I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to lock down. If I want to add a third, right, we'll have plenty of time for the 2 quarterback versus 3 quarterback debate. There's 20 rounds. I get it. If you want to take 3 quarterbacks on all your teams, makes total sense to me. I want the third quarterback decision to be a luxury based upon who I've drafted on my team, instead of a robotic, this is what my spreadsheet says you have to draft 3 quarterbacks, because I want to have 2 good ones. I want to be locked into 2 guys I really, really like and really, really trust, and never feeling the pressure of, God, I got to weigh into Kirk Cousins, and Kyler and Tua and these guys who may not even have jobs. I don't want to be swimming in those waters. I'd rather be out early on CMC than late. That's how I feel too. That is exactly how I feel. There's a quarterback, bro. See, you were Pit Boss with Pit Boss must be Gilbert Arenas second account here with all the quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. Can't wait till he keeps ripping quarterbacks. What's the max quarterbacks they'll allow you to take? I wouldn't know. Dart, Pitts, Dig, top of my ranks. Dart, Pitts, Diggs, Pittman, Boston. I don't have Denzel Boston yet. Let's make sure. Let's make sure I get a little bit of Denzel Boston. Oh, Dart with Neighbors. Oh, yeah. See, look at that. There we go. That works. And we stack Dart with Neighbors. So Genty, Neighbors, T-Mac, J-Mo, Makai Lemon, Justin Herbert, Denzel Boston, and Jackson Dart, of course, stacked with Malik Neighbors. We'll be looking for you know who on the Chargers here in the but if we don't get him, we don't get him. I don't trust you guys to let me have I don't trust you guys to let me have my boy Trey. Brad says, I feel like CMC best fantasy asset ever is the one guy. I will say he's not the best fantasy asset ever, but that's we're talking about like LaDainian Tomlinson and stuff days. It's still a little bit different. The best modern fantasy asset, I agree with you, is one guy to be late on than early given the massive upside if he still hits. The only that's completely fair. The only problem is that that's priced in, right? I think you could have I think that case did make sense, at least early in drafts last year, when, if you recall, heading into last draft season, he was coming off of the year where it was like, right, the calf thing, and like basically if you full faded him 2 years ago, you were a genius, which don't want to pat myself on the back, but there's probably a reason why I did well 2 years ago and didn't do so well this year. So I don't know if that's patting myself on the back or more so calling myself an idiot, or both. 2 years ago, right, you full fade CMC, Yahtzee. 3 years ago, nope. And last year, nope. But he also wasn't the guy you wanted to win tournaments this past year, which is always an easy caveat. Like, it's easy to say, well, Derrick Henry wasn't good all year, but you needed him to win tournaments. But, it was just one fluky week. And then also say, well, you didn't need Christian McCaffrey to win tournaments. Like, we can't have our cake and eat it too. CMC was a genuinely good pick this past year. But I think it was that thesis of be late on him made more sense last year than it did this year, where there was a lot more uncertainty and thus a decreased price. Now the price kind of came up over the course of the summer, but especially early on, there was a lot of upside to just saying, look, I don't know, it could be over for CMC, but the juice is worth the squeeze here. Like, we're talking about him versus Brian. We were talking about him versus Brian Thomas or whatever, now you're talking about him ahead of Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors and Genty with Clint Kubiak and CD and Amon-Ra, Saquon, Derrick Henry, we just talked about, Brock Bauer, like Drake London, I love. Like, he goes ahead of a lot of guys now that are a little bit more stable assets. And some of those guys, like a London, went after him last year too. But I think it's just a little bit different. Just a little bit different. But I appreciate the general point, and I think it's fine. Yeah, having zero, this is interesting. Having zero CMC puts risk on the entire portfolio as opposed to risk on just CMC teams. Yeah, but that's the case. This is fair. If we advance 38 teams on average, you can afford some CMC teams on the 112 that don't advance. But that's a risk mitigation. Like, you could also say, well, yeah, but if I fade him, I'm going to advance more teams. Right? You're saying I'm willing to sacrifice, which is, again, this is fair. You're saying I'm willing to sacrifice teams to the fantasy gods. Shoot. Let's get a couple of. I want to get some exposure. Let's do Addison. Haven't done much Addison thus far. But like, for every if you say that for every player, you're like, well, I'm not going to fade that guy. And I will say that over the course of the next, 6, 7, 8 months that we have. If you're going to say you like someone else, you have to pull from somewhere, right? Otherwise, just draft 8% of everybody and manage your combos a little bit, which is fine. We give you some tools to help you do that here. But if you're just going to say, well, you can afford to sacrifice some teams to the fantasy gods, even though you think that guy's maybe not a good pick. It's like, yeah, but at a certain point, you have to make some decisions. And maybe you say, I don't want to do that in those first few rounds, and that's fine. But that's not how if you really, really like Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb or Brock Bowers or whatever, and you want to be overweight to well overweight on some individual, right? Even if you want 12% of a certain player, that's 4% you have to pull from someone else, right? We have to think about it in these like truly basic rudimentary terms. They're like, every time I say I like a player, okay, what does that mean? How much you like him, right? Put some numbers to it, right? When I say I like this guy, do I like this guy 30%? Do I like this guy 50%? Do I like this guy 10% or 12%, right? Or I'm neutral. I like him 8. You know, he's like, yeah, that's my medicine, right? I'm just taking my maybe not 8%, maybe like the 4% is I'm just gonna take my medicine, be done with 4% and be done with it. But you have to move chips, right? This is a big draft board, but it's really a big roulette table. And if you're going to try to cover all your numbers, but put more on, I wore number 13 in college. When we go up to a roulette wheel, I put more on 13 than I wore 3 in high school and 13 in college. Those are the two numbers that I put the most on. I can't, if I'm going to spread all my chips out across the table, I have to pull from, some numbers are not going to be covered. Right. And that really is best ball, like in a nutshell. You can't get every combination of players. You can't get, if you want to have Malik Neighbors plus a bunch of these different second round picks, plus a bunch of these different third round picks, you have to draft more Malik Neighbors to get that, right? Because you're trying to put all these guys into a blender, shake them up, it spits out the winning protein shake or whatever, right? You're trying to get that. And the only way to get that is by having more combinations of those players. So something's got to give. We can't just well, I'm going to draft all these guys. You can say that, but then you are opening yourself up to a different kind of risk, and that risk is that you're not going to have combos. You're probably just not going to find the right combo, right? The more you spread your chips out, and that's a hard balancing act. Drew says, I want to spread my chips later on. Right now, I want 40 or 50% exposure guys and 0% others because the market is so imperfect right now. There ain't no pushback from me on that. That is for damn sure. Brenton Strange. I already have too much Emmett. I haven't drafted Brenton Strange yet. Oh my God, my mouse keeps freaking glitching and wigging out. Let's do Tajay again. I've done Emmett a couple different times here. So through 12 rounds, Genty, Neighbors, T-Mac, J-Mo, Mekhi Lemon, Justin Herbert, Denzel Boston, Jackson Darts. We got 2 quarterbacks. Jadarian Price, RB2. He is a little bit of a take my medicine. He's a little bit of the guy that the whole football world is. I'm coming around on a little bit. I need to move him up in the rankings. He's definitely a good football player. It just reeks of Roschon Johnson, and that's very bad pattern matching. By me, I fully admit that, but I can't get it out of my fucking head that like this was why isn't it's like, well, he's behind Jeremiah Love. It's like, well, that's what everybody said about the guys behind Bijan too, and they just sucked. So anyway, but the NFL seems to love him. All the NFL guys seem to love him, and so I think the draft capital is going to be there, whether or not I believe in it or not. And at the running back position, honestly, a lot of the talent evaluations are really fluid and matter a lot less, I think, than the wide receiver and tight end positions and quarterback. But Addison, Brenton Strange, and Tyjae Spears. So we got 3 running backs. We got some 6 wide receivers, really strong at wide receiver. Can start having some fun at running back. And my first Brenton Strange share. He's at a weird price where I just honestly like some of the cheaper guys, but I'm trying to be more open to some of those guys where when the reason to fade somebody, it's another thing that I struggle with. When a reason to fade somebody, it is nothing to do with them. It's like, well, I just like other guys at that price better. But you don't dislike Brenton Strange? Like, No, seems fine. Would you feel fine having, X amount of Brenton Strange teams? If you showed up to the playoffs and Brenton Strange was on your team, how would you feel about that? I would feel totally fine. Well, then just because you like other guys better, maybe you should figure out a way to get those guys and Brenton Strange on the same teams. But that's something I personally really struggle with. It's like pick 132 Brenton Strange, seems fine. But he's never at the top of my list when I come on the board there. So it's this weird sort of balancing act situation. There you go. Flyfish CMC was a second round pick to open Best Ball Mania last year. And the best round 2 CMC team finished 24th in BBM. I wouldn't know. I didn't make the finals. You could catch me in a couple of very cheap, low dollar DraftKings finals that were totally useless. I have a decent drafters playoff best ball team that, of course, only has Sharbs at running. I have the Seattle page. I actually have like 8 guys from those 2 teams. And it wasn't going to win the whole thing by any stretch of the imagination. But if it had fucking Walker instead of Sharbs, which of course is easy to say, I wouldn't have somebody else who was a little bit more expensive, whatever. But that's about how my playoff best ball went. Close, but no cigar. Okay, did nobody take Trey Harris? Okay, good. I'll do Harris and Vidal here. Get this little Chargers. Who's ADPs first? Okay. Vidal and Trey Harris. So we got ourselves another running back. I do quite like Vidal, actually. I like Hampton fine, but I think Vidal's a pretty darn good click. I think he proved to be a pretty good NFL football player. He was better on passing downs than Amari Hampton was. What does that mean? I have no idea for next year. Hampton should get better in that regard, but I think Kamani Vidal basically earned that backup job, 1B job, whatever you want to call it, there. And of course, was a smash when Hampton went out. So we have the contingent value plus maybe pass catching role, which is great. And of course, stacked with Herbert and Trey Harris. So we got that Dart Neighbors stack. And I would bet Herbert, Trey Harris. I would damn near guarantee Herbert plus Trey Harris is my highest owned stack in early contests in the big board. I really like Justin Herbert. I really like the Chargers. I don't really love Ladd and QJ. Gadsden is fine. And Trey Harris is one of my sort of breakout picks for next year. I'm holding on. I know the efficiency was not very good as a receiver this season, but I'm holding on to, again, do you believe in this thing or not? Do you believe in your love for Trey Harris as a prospect or not? I'm sticking with my guy. And I just think the Chargers offense is going to be awesome. That's probably my, speaking of the offenses you should be worried about, and like the inverse of that, offense you should be excited about. I think the Chargers are at the top, are the number 1 on my list. Do you view Vidal as having standalone value or just contingent handcuff? Standalone value in the way Samaje Perine has standalone value is how I would view it, which is very little, but sometimes a game goes your way and you catch 6 passes and fall into the end zone. I don't think this is Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell. That's not right, where it's like, okay, yeah, they're both just standalone guys that are going to hit your lineup. I think it's like Chase Brown, Samaje Perine. That's honestly how I view it. Hampton is Chase Brown, and Vidal is Perine. Probably better. He's better than Perine, but Hampton might not be as good as Chase Brown. We'll see. Warehouse says, I like how Sam Darnold is climbing despite doing worse this year compared to 2024. It is interesting. Played well as a real life football player, but they're not in the Super Bowl just because of Sam Darnold. They're in the Super Bowl because the team rocks, especially on defense. Okay, I'm definitely taking Samson. I got to decide. This is 16, 17, 18, 19. Get 4 more rounds. I want to get at least a couple more running, 2 more running backs and 2 more tight ends. So let's do, man, I'm going to do Vele. I think we talked about this too. I've found so far in my 2026 drafts, particularly in the big board, that the very late round, right? So this is the late rounds, 16, 17, whatever. But the last 2 rounds, let's call it, not much at wide receiver. I'll throw some darts at some rookies, but there's not a lot back there that I really, really love. Like I'm talking about the last round 19 and 20. So I want to make sure I'm thinking about that when I'm like, okay, do I take a running back here or do I take a wide receiver here? Well, you like a lot of the later running backs and tight ends more than the late wide receivers. That can change. I'm still doing I'm hoping to get my rookie rankings out maybe this weekend. And so I'm still going through sort of my rookie eval process, but it's always tricky for me to pass on Isaiah Likely. I probably should have. I just really like Vele, and so I can't help myself. I knew Versailles was gonna. It was between Flanoy and Vele for me, but I think they're both awesome clicks in these rounds. And I kind of figured I saw some of you guys in here, particularly Versailles, that I wasn't going to get who I wanted. Whatever. You have Dak and Ferg, you say. Whatever. I don't want to hear it. How's that 104 doing? Oh, okay. Singleton, 80. I mean, Singleton broke his foot just now. And Tyreek Hill. Wow. Interesting. Kenny G, David Montgomery, Wandale, Pittman. After all those quarterbacks. Yeesh. Dude, this Ray Davis price is crazy. I mean, part of me gets it, but part of me is like, that's pretty wild. Okay, I'm going to take Ray. I've been taking Jordan James. I need to probably change this up a time or two. But he says as he takes Jordan James again. So I'm probably going to close this out with a couple of tight ends, but 2, 7, 8, 1 through 18 rounds with Justin Herbert and Jackson Dart at quarterback, Ashton Genty, Jadarian Price, Tyjae Spears, Kamani Vidal, Dylan Sampson, Ray Davis, and Jordan James at running back. I quite like that running back room. Malik Neighbors, T-Mac. One thing that you saw me draft Vele. I got a couple rookie wide receivers, and I got J-Mo, who I love J-Mo, but not exactly a picture of consistency, generally speaking, nor is Jordan Addison. And then, Neighbors could get off to a slow start. He could miss the beginning of the season. So someone like Vele, I think, is a good fit in terms of types of players to put together. Let's see. I gotta fix my late round tight end target exposures here in the optimizer, but it does have Gunnar Helm up here, which I like. And so then I have Brenton Strange. I'm gonna close it out with a couple of tight ends here. Him in Stores. I think Freiermuth is fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Gesicki is fine. Ben Sinnott is fine. Michael Mayer is honestly fine. So we'll hopefully take a couple of those guys. I'll put Chig at the back. This is true. Any hope for JJ McCarthy since he has Justin Jefferson, you mean? Do I have hope for JJ McCarthy? Not particularly. not particularly. He had Justin Jefferson this year, if that's the question. But I wasn't a JJ McCarthy fan as a prospect, and I don't think he's shown anything to disprove that that we should change our stance on that. Young players can get better. I trust in the infrastructure and the coaching in Minnesota, of course, but I don't have much confidence that JJ McCarthy is just going to figure it out all of a sudden. What I have strange, strange. Okay, I'm gonna do Ben Sinnott, which doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. Freiermuth is just okay. They are gonna sling it around a lot more, I think. So I think I need to get more Freiermuth. Right. This was a disaster season for Pat Freiermuth, but the Steelers are going to look and operate a lot differently than what they have in recent years. This is not me pounding the table for Mike McCarthy. We have Aaron Rodgers coming back, potential risk. I don't actually think that is going to happen, but I think it's possible Pittsburgh's passing game is much, even with a quarterback that maybe we are not super excited about. Like, I don't mean Aaron Rodgers. I mean someone else. I think it's still possible that Mike McCarthy can, look, he has many flaws, but he'll sling it around. He'll sling it around out there. And I still think Pat Freiermuth can play a little bit. And so in the last round of a 3 tight end team, obviously Zach Ertz hurt. So we Ben Sinnott, just trying that shit again, I guess. But I was really hoping for Helm, but nonetheless, he went at the 1904. So real quick rundown the team here. Reminder, I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and working on scheduling something with Karain. So you'll be on the lookout for that. But we started with Genty, Neighbors at the 1-2 turn, the 12, 112, and 201. T-Mac, Jameson Williams, Mekhi Lemon, Justin Herbert, Denzel Boston. I do kind of like, that's a pretty fun little start right there. And then Jackson Dart, of course, to pair with Malik Neighbors. Then we start to get into our running back bag here. Jadarian Price, go to Jordan Addison and Brenton Strange, Tyjae Spears, Kamani Vidal, and Trey Harris at the turn, who of course pair with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. For my Chargers love, I do like them. The Giants thing is so annoying because I was really, really excited, and then the coaching hirings have not been quite as exciting for old Mr. Harbaugh. But we'll see. I'm still holding on optimism. Dylan Sampson, I think, with the Dylan Sampson was really uninspiring this past season, but with the Quinshon Judkins injury, and Sampson has a chance to get better heading into year 2. I think that is fine there. Devon Bailey, we talked about that one. Ray Davis, I totally get why Ray Davis is going cheaply, but I'm really excited about him. I think he took a very real leap in terms of on-field performance this season. I thought he was awesome, straight up really good as an NFL running back. And then Ty Johnson is back, and they trust Ty Johnson in passing situations because he's an awesome pass protector. But what I thought was really fascinating was in the playoff game, Ty Johnson did not play against the Jaguars. And instead of expanding James Cook's role, they actually put Ray Davis into the Ty Johnson role, and Ray Davis was out snapping James Cook for the first while in that game. I think he has multiple passes. And then, so you combine the fact that he sort of has double contingent value. And I think there's just general potential for role growth period of a young player heading into year 3, who's really comfortable in the system now. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can win with Ray Davis. And when the rubber meets the road, especially in the big board, when it's this early, If you just tell me like this guy's just a really good football player, like I think it's just you like that can be your tiebreaker of like guy I'm speculating on, who knows, right? He's a mystery box, and a guy that like, okay, I don't know that I love the role, but I know he's really good at football. I'm gonna almost always side with the really good at football player. And I think Ray Davis has reached that level that like every time he gets on the field, he produces. Now that's a little bit of the offensive line and Josh Allen and Joe Brady and stuff, but that's he's playing with Josh Allen and Joe Brady and the offensive line. So he's going to be a guy that I'm targeting pretty heavily. Jordan James, I've talked a lot about as he's the backup running back to Christian McCaffrey, who we discussed a good bit today. And then close out the tight end room with two guys I'm not particularly like. I mean, they're 19th and 20th round tight ends, but I think there's guys, we'll see on Ben Sinnott, but there's guys back here at the tight end position that are going to be on the field and scoring fantasy points. And I think that there's just an inherent level of value in that, in the big board again, where shoot, man, like Jeremy Bernard, like, is he ever even active on game days? Who knows? Maybe he's awesome. Maybe he's never playing. There's so much variance that I'm trying to get better at some of that stuff. So the old 2783 build there for us. That is Rabona. I promise you we're going to have rookie. I'm not all the way through my rookie research yet. That's why you haven't heard any particular shows or podcasts about it or whatever. It's coming. Like I said earlier, I know, and I don't mean any shade by that. Going to try to get my first run of rookie rankings out this weekend. So I'm not done with my rookie evaluations yet. Hoping to get that done this week. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, I'll talk about it on these shows for the next couple of days. Be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. I haven't decided yet what we're going to discuss. I imagine I won't be able to shut up about some potential NBA trade deadline stuff. So I don't know what the hell that means for what we're going to do. Maybe we'll draft some baseball. Maybe we'll draft some football. I don't know. We'll do some drafting though, either way. So I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you could thumbs up it. And if you have any questions that I did not touch on, hit those in the comments. I always reply to all of your comments. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful Wednesday. And I'll see those folks in the Discord in the lab here in about 15 minutes. Cheers, guys. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.